Hamilton! Unbelievable stuff!
Howdy YouTube, we're back this week in Mexico after Ferrari Masterclass at COTA. Hopefully I pronounced this right, but the Mexican Grand Prix is held at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, and this track is famous for two reasons. One, it has one of the longest straights in Formula One, maybe the longest, depending on who you ask, and two, it is the highest elevated Formula One race, so with the thin air, downforce will certainly be at a premium. This track has also had some famous moments.
The final corner, it's high fives for Lewis Hamilton, a five-time champion of the world. Vettel, and that is a big lockup from Max Verstappen, and he goes wide, and Sebastian Vettel, as Verstappen goes onto the grass, might be able to come and take the remaining podium place.
He has to let me go. He has to let me go.
Okay, copy, stay calm.
He's just backing me off into Ricciardo.
And he's not just backing him off, Ricciardo's having a go down the inside, and somehow Sebastian...
He's shouting on the radio like a child. It is just like a child.
All the progress that Norris had made so far in the race has been undone as side by side here. Hamilton to the inside, Hamilton to second position, he gets past Charles Leclerc.
Last year's winner was Max Verstappen, and the lap record belongs to Valtteri Bottas, set in 2021 with the W12. Looking at this week's schedule, this is a normal weekend, so Friday we'll have FP1 and FP2, FP3 and qualifying are on Saturday, with Sunday as race day, and I anticipate everything will be on time as the weather looks quite boring for the Grand Prix. Just like last week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are expected to be partly cloudy with mild conditions. Temperatures will hover around the mid-70s Fahrenheit or upper teens Celsius all 3 days, and winds will be at the northeast at around 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour each day. In terms of how this will affect the Grand Prix, this is almost always a two-stopper, and given this weather, this will certainly be the case, so expect every team to likely go with a set of medium and hard tires. However, unlike last week, I wouldn't expect Ferrari to screw up the strategy. As far as current news goes, there's not a whole lot to cover, but let's start with the penalties from last race. I get that this is somewhat subjective, but Max honestly should have left Austin with a bigger lead than he did. Lando, to me, was lucky not to get penalized at least 3 times. He moved under braking multiple times, and he had the audacity to complain about being forced off the track when he had no claim to that space whatsoever. He was actually behind at the apex, which is not what McLaren said. I know Max and Red Bull sometimes look like they get away with a lot, and yeah, the FIA is very inconsistent with penalties, but come on, don't be the pot calling the kettle black, Lando. That being said, it would be very nice if the FIA became more consistent. I mean, just look at it.
Look at it! I want all of you to look at it!
And finally, I know, short section, there is some buzz around the paddock about Piastri looking to join Red Bull, but I wouldn't even take that with a ton of salt. It's more likely just more squabbling between Red Bull and McLaren, and not just because Helmut Marko said it, but because it would be career suicide for Piastri. In the driver's standings, as I previously just went over, Max actually extended his lead to 57 points this weekend, so unless Max is a truly horrible outing, he should be fine with only 5 races remaining. However, things happen, and at the moment, Leclerc, Lando, and Max are mathematically and realistically still in the hunt. At the constructor standings, no big changes, except that Red Bull will certainly fall to 3rd in the coming races, behind Ferrari, and maybe down to 4th if Mercedes can ever stay consistent. Now for my predictions for the Grand Prix. Let's start with the best 3 teams, worst 3 teams, and my top 5 drivers in order. For the best 3 teams, I'm going with McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes. Even without upgrades last week, Ferrari had the best pace, and Red Bull, or let's be real, Max, looks fine right now. But their tire degradation is horrendous compared to the other frontrunners, and even with Mercedes being a bit peaky, even when they had those low points, their peak is just the best car on the track typically, so it's hard to say, but I think Mercedes will figure it out when they test both upgrades this weekend. For the 3 weakest teams, I think Sauber, Haas, and Alpine will be at the bottom with really no reason to elaborate here. And finally, for my top 5 drivers, I'm picking Leclerc to take P1 again. Ferrari should perform well on this track, which is very similar to COTA, and they have upgrades this weekend, so we'll see how this goes. Next, I have Lando Norris and Max Verstappen in P2 and P3. Both will do well, but Lando can't get out his own way, and Oscar will be told to back off, so I think he'll beat Max this weekend, but it'll be close. Next, I see Lewis Hamilton at P4, ahead of Carlos Sainz at P5, as I expect Lewis to bounce back strongly after his crash in COTA, especially with Mercedes dialing in those new setups. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and I'll see you next week for the Brazilian Grand Prix.